Hello everybody, my name is Joshua Fiore and I'm a sophomore student here at Purdue University, telling you about my internship experience here over the past summer. As part of construction engineering and management, I have had the pleasure of working with Kiewit Construction over the summer, and I've had a tremendous experience working on the Central 70 project out here in Denver, Colorado. So the Central 70 project was a renovation of I-70, which is the highway that runs right next to Denver, Colorado. And the reason for this renovation was that the highway was slowly deteriorating from mostly being elevated. Most of the highway near the city was, like I said, on elevated bridges that were falling into disrepair. And so in order to reduce the risk of safety and other concerns, such as restricted lanes and everything, the highway was brought subgrade in order to widen the lanes and also just, again, increase safety from getting rid of the dangerous bridges. So, as I said, the lanes were widened, there were more lanes added to increase traffic flow and safety, and there were a couple of community projects that were also involved that were included a elementary school park, because there's an elementary school right next to the highway, and part of where it was covered when the highway went subgrade was a little area for the park. And as you can see on there, the highway reconstruction was a 10-mile long stretch of I-70 and was about $1.2 billion. So I specifically worked for Kiewit Foundations Company, which is a subset of Kiewit that specifically works on, well, foundations. So we're not building the asphalt and everything itself. We're more working on the things that hold up the asphalt, if that makes sense. So my specific project that my team was working on were things called soil nail walls, which are like a retaining wall for unstable soil. The soil out there was very sandy, and so in order to hold everything up and make sure it doesn't collapse on the highway, we had to build these big retaining walls. So as I said before, this highway was subgrade. So in order to make sure that the soil didn't collapse on the highway, these exit ramps had to be held together with these retaining walls, these soil nail walls. And so the way these work is essentially you have the wall of soil and you drill into it using this drill rig you can see in that top picture. And then once you drill somewhere between 10 to 20 feet, depending on what the design calls for, you then insert a pole of rebar into there, filled up with grout, and that becomes your nail that holds the soil in place. And so these nails are spaced every 5 feet, about, again, it calls for whatever the spec of the design is. And these all hold up the soil. And then once these are all in place, the shotcrete finish is then applied to keep the soil in place and make sure the nails remain in place as well. And that's where the spacer, nuts, and retainings can all hold on to the nail and keep it all in place. So there are a couple of lessons I learned through working on this project, and the biggest one is to get it right done the first time. Repairs can be very costly and time-consuming, purely due to the fact that you are now wasting materials, time, and can risk falling behind schedule. This can also lead to it being dangerous for the fact that people could be rushing and could be annoyed due to the fact that they are redoing something that they just did just past week or the past day, and can lead to more increased likelihood of accidents and injuries. One way to prevent this is preparation. Having preparation was a big thing we worked on, and we had toolbox talks every morning that helped align the contractors, foremen, engineers, and superintendent all on what the activities were for the day, and make sure everyone on the same page of processes and safety precautions that need to be taken place. And something that I certainly learned was that soil is not often forgiving. It is often very hard to work with, and sometimes then the drills would collapse, the drill holes would collapse, and you had to just working with sandy soil that is not often doing what it wants you to do, doing what you want it to do. My greatest triumph, I think, was my greatest accomplishment, which was being a part of the team using this GPS rover. I received training on this like the first week, and it really helped me become part of a team by plotting layout for where the drill was supposed to go, and marking stations on the wall for specific events such as testing, certain nails that need to be tested. And I was able to use a variety of instruments, including theodolites and laser levels, that all helped me gain a lot of field experience for using these instruments. And it was just a great experience that helped me learn what being on the field is like and helped me be a contributing member, which I enjoyed tremendously. Some of the biggest challenges that we experienced as a team was that soil nail walls were new to Kiewit foundations. Kiewit itself had done them, but foundations, it was new, particularly because we're such a new company, or a new subset. So because of this, we always had to be continually improving our process. What you can see on there was when we were building grout columns, which are essentially kind of vertical soil nail walls, which basically, but they don't include the actual nail itself. They're just to hold the soil in place so that they don't collapse when we're actually digging the wall. But the wall was on a tilt, like as different elevations. But we started at the top and made our way down because that was where the grout plant was. But we realized as we did that, the spill-offs would go down the hill and we would be drilling into our spill-offs, which was messy, time-consuming, and was also like detrimental. But we realized if we started at the bottom of the hill and made our way up, we would be able to not drill into our spill-offs, and it made the process significantly faster. One of my biggest challenges was a knowledge gap. I didn't have quite the same experience as everybody else, which makes sense as I had never done this before, and working with people who had 20 to 30 to 40 or even more years of experience, it required a lot of learning on the go and making sure I always was learning. And so I definitely learned a lot, which was great. And I think just even in the 2 months, I was able to gain so much more knowledge than I ever anticipated. Another thing I had was long weeks. I knew this was going to happen, but sometimes you work 8-hour days, sometimes you work 15-hour days. And it's brutal when stuff goes wrong, and you got to work 15 hours, but you just got to get the job done. Some things I wish I knew. I do wish I had a bit more field knowledge. I know that was tough because I never had the chance to do all this at school, because that's what these internships are for. These internships are for gaining field knowledge. And now I think going into my future internships, I will definitely know for a fact much more about the industry. And even though it might not be doing soil nail walls, I will just have that much more industry knowledge. So I also wish I knew a bit more about practical construction processes, including RFIs, build plans, submittals. These are all basic things that I know we're going over in 280 right now, but I do wish I'd known a little bit more about them, at least what they were. It would just help with the whole process. And another weird thing, I wish I knew Spanish, because a lot of the laborers talked in Spanish, and some language barriers could have been helped resolved if I knew a little more Spanish. But overall, this was a tremendous experience, and I'm so happy to have been a part of it. And I look forward to future internships to come and using this experience to help me in the future.